ready to start, everybody? After Luke does his presentation, I'm going to close it out with some stuff that I want you guys to hear before we all leave for the day. And so we have a special guest here today, Josh Shimo, Lucas Cameron. He has a YouTube channel called Trumpets of Revelation, and I remember stumbling upon his video, and I looked at the video. It had all these views, and he had I think he had the Yahusha shirt on, the black Yahusha shirt, and he was saying that the Hebrew, the African Americans, and the true Israelites, and he was doing this and due diligence, and I was like, man, who is this guy? Right. And he was really breaking it down, and I had never seen a white person on YouTube saying this. Yeah. And to see how many views that he had on his YouTube channel, and so when I seen his YouTube channel, it said 7 Trumpets of Prepper, and I started to investigate what he was talking about, because of course we all know about the 7 trumpets, and the seals, and the vials, and the bowls, and revelations. And so, and with Prepper, everybody probably heard of the Doomsday Prepper series they used to have. And I used to watch those back in the day and be like, man, these people are really getting prepared for something. But at the time, I still had that mentality of the rapture. Because being brought up in the Apostolic Pentecostal Church, you're ingrained with the rapture until you start doing your research for yourself. That's right. And so, but the stuff that Luke had on there, he's literally doing a lot what people probably want to do right now, but they don't know how to do it. Because we all have our own specialties in health or in police work or engineer or lawyer. But this guy, he has so much skills in the things that he does. And for him to be putting up solar panels, he's talking about solar solutions, water solutions, sanitary solutions, and he's doing weapons and protection, inverters and water filters and walkie-talkies, all these things. Even food, all these things are very important, and he is actually linked up with a lot of Hebrews in different parts of America, and maybe overseas. I don't know if you went overseas or not, to the United Kingdom, Germany, and he's actually helped Hebrews with their projects, and he's actually also, helped out with Pastor Dow. He's had a video on there with Pastor Dow, and he has a big homesteading community living off the grid, and so if anybody needs help with getting off the grid, Lucas is the man to do it. So everybody give a warm welcome to Lucas Cameron.
First, before I begin, I just want to say that I appreciate the invite from Ron. I'm not a pastor or teacher, I'm just a contractor. So I'm going to help you with some of the physical preparation today, but spiritual preparation, we've got plenty of good people in the building to take you through that. Real quick note is I'm going to pass Ron's passing around papers right now. That information on there is so that you can get the supplies and materials you need. Those are respectable places. Like the seeds aren't profane, they're non-GMO. These are things within the lines of Torah. So I just try to be careful about that moving forward, because you are what you eat. So a lot of these things, medical supplies, seeds, etc. So what started the journey for me out of Babylon was that I started finding the truths in Scripture. I started looking at the 7 trumpets, and my church is lying to me. We're not going to be just zapped out of here. This is going to hit, and it's going to hit hard.
That's right.
So for me, that started my journey out, and I've been in the technical expertise for about 15 years, from machine shop work, welding, structural engineering, commercial electricity, you name it, pretty much we do. I build tiny houses now too. And so I started looking at things from a scripture perspective and just sharing things on YouTube, how to do it, and one thing snowballed into another in between doing a business. So what we're going to be talking about is preparing for the 7 Trumpets of Revelation. And like I said, we're looking at this from a physical standpoint, because I looked at these things as what can we do to be prepared for that physically? Because we're going to need to be able to take this on spiritually and physically.
That's right.
The first 4 we're going to be covered. It's just like the situation in Egypt. There's going to come a point when the woes hit. There ain't a thing anybody can do about it. That's between you and the Most High. But these first 4 right here, there's going to be some situations come up, everybody's preparing for something. I hear so many people talk about so many things that's frivolous, like zombie apocalypse, stuff like that. That's never going to happen. EMP, things like that. We have many people that hate this country, and likewise. But what we do know is what the Scripture says is going to come to pass. So if you're going to prep for something, why not prep for something, 100% solid is going to come to place. Mm-hmm. So with that said, and I'm just summarizing this, it says a third of the trees are burned up. Okay, so a third of the stars are going to fall out of the heavens above. So whether you're a globe earth person or you believe the world's under a firmament dome, something's coming down. Okay, a third of the ships in the sea are going to be destroyed, and a third of the sea becomes blood because the burning mountain with fire falls into it. A third of the waters are turned bitter. Okay, this is the fresh waters at this point. We have a third of the ocean, this is a third of the fresh waters, and a third of the sun, moon, and stars do not shine. All right, so that's going to be some very interesting events. So whether, hopefully my brothers and sisters of the nations are going to wake up, perk up, be like, you know what, maybe we should start getting it together. Or whether you're Hebrew Israelite, hopefully this is going to be a wake-up to a lot of people, and hopefully souls are saved. That's kind of what I'm looking at that situation, is the first 4 are wake up, the last 5 are cleaning house. Or the last of the 3 are cleaning house, I'm sorry. So what we're going to go over is what can we do to prepare, what are the types of preparation, and how do these all apply to the final events, and try to bring as many examples as we possibly can. I've been working on this ever since 2009. It's time that I work on this a lot more. Some people may have been working on this for a long time. It's time for you to start working on this more. Everything's a balance in life, okay? Right. So, like I said, you may have been building ark for a long time. It's time to clean the profane from the holy, okay? So that's Luke over here right now. But this may be everybody needing to, a lot of people need to be getting their preps together. There's actually a 6th preparation, and I'm sorry, I don't know why that did that on the slide, but it's obviously protection. But I don't like to advocate violence, so I'm just going to leave that one there where it lies. Don't need to get no attention that's unneeded. Okay, so really the big 5, though, outside of that is food, water, shelter, sanitation, and power. If you have this, you have a fundamental foundation of survival, okay? And there's strength in numbers. So I encourage people in that work together. You know, I mean, like, I've been to Pastor Dale's, and that for many, many decades, okay? This is not their first rodeo, okay? But for a lot of us, we may be alone. You may only have your family. But like I said, if you can do things together, there's a lot more power in numbers. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to go through those in a minute. But before that, children in here, I know this may get a little graphic for a minute, but we are going to see this before our eyes one day. We're going to look at this in a pictorial perspective so that we can get a clear picture of what we're actually prepping for. Okay? This scripture, I think about it at times because a lot of people say they long for the day of the Most High. I'm telling you, as a Gentile convert, I fear the day of the Most High. It's going to be dark and nasty. Luke may not be standing when the smoke clears, all right, but I hope that I'm in the new kingdom one day and count the word. But I warn people that, you know, you don't need to be hurrying for the usher of the day of the Most High, because when it comes, it is going to come in a big way. All right, so the first thing that we're going to see is after the great earthquake, the worldwide earthquake, pretty much what Revelation describes, is you've got a third of the stars falling out of heaven and it's burning up a third of the green grass. So a lot of people's homes, a lot of your preps, a lot of things, if you don't have it stored properly or protected, obviously you got the risk of it being burned up. The next thing, we have pretty much 2 possible situations, and I don't want to add to scripture or take away. I mean, literally, there's pretty much 2 options you have here. Is either that burning mountain with fire is like an asteroid cast down, or either it's literally like a burning mountain volcano and going into the ocean. I mean, one of the 2 pretty much scenarios is what scientists have talked about too, looking at this from just a physical perspective. But nevertheless, you know, if you live in the coastal areas, I mean, you're going to destroy a third of the ships. You know, we're talking battleships, we're talking massive things in the ocean. It's going to take a rogue wave. I mean, if you're on a Carnival cruise that day, it might not turn out too good. I mean, this is going to be, I mean, we're talking that movie 2012, you know, when you see the Buddhist monk standing up there and he's ringing the bell, and then like the whole mountains are covered over with the ocean. I mean, we're never going to see a time such as this ever again. That's what Scripture says. So, I mean, you got to think about if you live near the coast, then this is a potential. okay? And it could go ever so many miles in. I mean, we've seen in Indonesia, I think it was in 2009 or 2011 in Indonesia. I think it was the same year as the Arab Spring. It just happened in no time flat, killed multitudes. Imagine that 10 times, you know, on a magnitude greater scale. Option B, which is very plausible, is that, you know, I think they said in the Canary Islands that if a particular volcano went off, it could send a shock wave through the ocean ever so far. So if you had an asteroid hit, say in the center of the Atlantic Ocean, or for example, this situation happened, you got to think the effect that's from West Africa all the way to eastern United States, all the way up to Europe. I mean, there is a lot of effect that can happen from this. Displaced from your home, water is going to be contaminated, and I pretty much got an example of just about every solution you could think of for when this does happen. Depending on whatever scenario plays out, there's just about a solution for it. The next thing is that we got to think about is that a third of the fresh water sources is going to be contaminated. You know, we have chemtrails spraying the sky now that the two elements they spray, it's interesting if you look at it on the elemental chart, it actually spells out Baal, okay, false deity. So interesting because it's barium and aluminum.
Oh, wow.
So when you put them two elements together, that spells that right out. So I'm just starting to think they do this stuff intentionally.
Yeah.
But a third of the fresh water is contaminated. You know, Scripture doesn't really go depth on what that is. Is it radioactive? I mean, is it some kind of element that's radioactive? Is it bitter? You know, just something that's bitter that may give you some kind of disease. It really doesn't go in depth on it. But one thing is, 1/3 of all fresh water sources is going to be exposed to that. And the last thing, the fourth trumpet, is that a third of the sun, moon, and star, we see these go dark. So, you know, if you're relying on alternative energy, like a lot of people that live off grid, it happens one day, you may not get solar power. The wind may not blow. So, you know, if you don't have hydroelectric or wood gasification or some other means of power, you may be in a bad spot. So when we think about these situations, you've got to widen the perspective of what you can do to address that. Sawyer, this is for everyday use. That's good to 100,000 gallons. You can back flush it with clean water to open up the membrane. First thing we'll pass around right here, this live straw. A live straw pretty much take care of anything just everyday use. A lot of people keep this in their everyday bag. You know, the rule of threes is 3 days, 3 months, okay? If you, excuse me, the rule of three. You've got your 72 hours, you've got your 30 days, and then you've got 3 months. If you can start staggering your preps for that, anything past that, you're just building on at that point, but at least you've got a foundation. This right here, if you use that daily, that's pretty much about a month for one person. And that's just regular water use. These right here are for regular situations, okay? This right here is something that you would want to consider maybe for whenever the fresh water sources are contaminated, because that right there is for nuclear, biological, chemical, radioactive. It's a heavy-duty straw. And the information to get these items is on that paper that Ron passed out. This is very expensive to ascertain, but like I said, you can pretty much drink out of a radioactive water puddle. I know that's not something you want to think about, but you know, Fukushima did happen, folks. This Berkey right here, all right, this is for Muddy Creek. This is for if you're harvesting rainwater off your house that just got chemtrail sprayed the other day. The top filter that goes in is carbon, but the bottom filter is heavy duty for chemical and for all sorts of contaminants and things that are not, like fluoride in your drinking water, okay, things like that. It'll get rid of it. This right here that I'm going to pass around, this is called the survival steel. It's very interesting. Whoa, what are we doing here? So the survival steel is an interesting piece of equipment because it can filter out just about anything. And the way it's done is you set a pot, you set this on top of it. There is a straw that goes through the other end that drips it off. It's pretty much like a distillery. And then you set another pot on top to cool the water and condense it. If you live near an ocean area that needs to have the water desalinated, that right there can save your life. The problem with using that too much, though, is when water doesn't have minerals in it, doesn't have electrolytes in it, eventually your body's not getting the right nutrients and etc. from the water, so you can get in a situation. So that's why I tell people that if you're going to store water like this right here is the pH level on it is 9.5. It's super high. So like, bacteria, bad things that would harm you, it's hard for stuff like that to live in a high alkaline environment. So if you're going to store water, you're just going to pop all the water and store it back. I would encourage.
Luke, how much they cost, man?
That essential water?
Yeah.
It's like I think it's $1.50 something, like Walmart. It's a little pricey, but I know Fiji water I think is the most expensive, but it sure is crisp. Now, if you're going to have water on your land, this is what I encourage people. If you got a well, you ain't got to worry about a lot of the situations you're going to get in with city water being contaminated, the open water sources being contaminated. If you have a spring, a natural spring that you could dam up and use for hydroelectric power and also to store water from, these are sources that hopefully won't be damaged when the trumpets start. These are things to consider on that. But now each one of these, just for example, this is for everyday use. This is for radio. This is for the really, really bad things happen, okay? This is like if you lived in Japan near Fukushima, you won't have this on hand. This is for if you're collecting rainwater or everyday use on the farm, something like that. This gets rid of chemtrail, fluoride, etc. This right here, if you live near the ocean, tsunami comes in, wipes out everything, possibly have contaminants in the water. This will do everything from desalinating the water to making it drinkable. If you're going to store water, obviously, like I said, the pH level on that's so high that a high alkaline environment help keep your body healthy. They have a machine that makes your water alkaline. I've seen this working for customers. I have no idea how much it costs, but such a device does exist. So that's really neat because you can create water that's healthy to you. And I'll be honest with you, when I started drinking high alkaline water, I felt this people say they get this red rash, like toxins come out of your body so fast that it actually make you sick drinking alkaline water because you're detoxed. So yes sir.
Yeah, I have that water machine that you're talking about. We also sell them. They're about $3,000, but you can split the payment up into 12 months, interest-free. But it's a great machine, and I would recommend it for any family or even assemblies to get. And it gives you the pH 9.5, 9.0, 8.5, and also some other type of water as well. So it's a great machine.
That gentleman right there will get you the information on that. I think that's definitely a worthy investment. The next thing we're going to do is I decided I'd bring some food and feed everybody. I figured that wouldn't hurt nobody's feelings. So I love strawberries, okay? This, for anybody that's never used prep food that's like the 20-year storage, that's freeze-dried, you can't go wrong with strawberries. You can eat them without even having to worry about rehydrating them. But most people, when they go to put food back, this is pretty much the gambit that I've seen over the years, okay? As a farmer, I just started out putting canned food back. I thought the trumpets were going to start tomorrow. When I read the scripture, I'm like, better act on this right now. So this right here, everybody knows you go to the store, you get a can of Spam, a couple year, can of beans, a couple years, it varies on stuff, the date stamps. All right, but a lot of this has garbage in it. Everything from MSGs to, the sky's the limit. There is a couple companies that I shared the information with going around there that, like I said, I try to stay away from GMO things and anything that wasn't the way that the Creator intended it. If you put back stuff like this. My mom and dad has this on the farm from a different company that this stuff goes for 20 years, just set and forget it. Easy. I guarantee you, open that can of lentils that was from, I think, 3 years after I came to be in existence myself, I'd say it's still good to eat right now, and that's about going on 40 years old. So, I mean, this is the ticket, and I mean, it tastes like real food, it is real food, but it comes at a cost. You know, that's the thing, everything good in life, it comes at a cost. MREs, a lot of the stuff in it is unclean, but there is a lot of MREs that are out there that are clean and kosher. And the shelf life on that, if you keep that, I think it's in a 68 degrees to 65 environment, you can keep them like 6-7 years. So depending on the manufacturer of that, there is some videos that I've done on the channel over the years. Anything that you see, feel free to download it. I don't care if you copy and share it to somebody, it's just to save lives. Okay, but there's a vacuum sealer. I showed how to make a vacuum canner in there. So you can put stuff in cans, and instead of, you know, a lot of people, like my grandmother, she'd put that in there, set it on the cooker, and that seals the can. But of course, that kills a lot of nutrient in food. The vacuum sealing stuff seals it. It's in suspended, pretty much animation. So a lot of vacuum sealed stuff, it depends. The lifespan on it can get drastically extended if you're going to put it back. The next thing is these storage tote containers of food. It varies. Like this one right here, the date stamp is for 28 November of 28. So this right here would sit around for like 10 years. I'll pass that around to you. And there is, this is the reason I brought this one for an example, is it's got food, fire, and water in it. So this is like something you could easily set back for 72 hours, you know. And my thing is that I've done this over the years, is I bought a lot of food, put it back with tithe money, and then after it sat for a while, I gave it to the food bank, you know, before it got wasted. But I've always had an issue just throwing money in the offering plate, not knowing where it's going. So like that kind of took control of the tithe. But you got to be careful of what company you get this stuff from, because like that Wise Food Company, I'm not getting paid to tell you this stuff, but that Wise Food Company, I wouldn't get stuff from them. Like there's just a lot of these food companies that they have a pagan mentality. They're just about the money. They're not about kosher. They're not about your health. It's just, you know, let's sell it, sell it, sell it. So just my encouragement is to be careful of the things you buy and put back, because I mean, this is what your life's going to rely on one day. White Seed Harvest, they are a God-fearing. I mean, they fear the Most High God. They are good people. They put Scripture on their seed packets. And they're non-GMO, and I know the food that you produce from that, you won't have to worry about either. I can vouch for them from my own farm. Joel Skousen, if I could ever be a contractor like him later down the road when I'm advanced in years, I'll say that I've gotten something accomplished. He has worked for the government. He's built bunkers, strongholds. He probably worked on some of them underground projects, if truth be known. But this guy right here wrote a book that's Strategic Relocation. It's in its 3rd edition. Feel free to hang on to this here at the church for a while if you want to, and just mail it back to me. No rush. New York is marked in it. I know a lot of people here are from abroad. Take your time, look through it. Like I said, Vince can mail it back to me whenever. That guide has got everything in it. Military bases, strategic locations that, you know, if they got damaged could hurt you. Nuclear power facilities. I mean, everything you could possibly think of that will be a risk factor, it's there in that book. He just goes into great detail on it. Like I said, he's worked for Uncle Sam for a long time, so he knows what he's talking about. And plus, if you're you know, a lot of people are looking at real estate, they're looking for a safe place away from the cities. He rates the states with a star rating. So like, you know, it's like you go on TripAdvisor, it's like 3 stars. Okay, we'll do it. Half star, cool, we're gonna steer clear of there. You know, I mean, it's very clearly laid out, and then within the states, you know, you can see really clearly the divisions of everything. Yeah, like I said, from military bases to our enemies abroad that would strategically want to attack us. Like in Tennessee, Oak Ridge would obviously be a hot spot. You know, I don't want to live near Oak Ridge because, you know, that'd be a nuclear tactical strike spot. But the thing about it is a worldly mindset that he's put into that book, if you can take the trumpets and apply that overlay, that's the last overlay you need to lay in that book, then man, the sky's the limit the rest of the places. All those places that are pretty much marked safe, that's a great spot to start looking for if you don't have a place to go to. This is another good book that pass around. And that's just got a little brief breakdown of everything when it comes to prepping, because a lot of people have never even heard of the word prepping in life until somebody brings it up to it. You know, I've always been a farmer, and then I was like, oh my goodness, I need to start prepping. So, I mean, there is it's something that's kind of taboo to talk about, and a lot of people that never even heard the word, but it's something that we all are definitely going to have to get acquainted with. This is some things that I want to pass around is if you don't have communication with one another, you can't just whip out the iPhone and talk to everybody whenever the stuff hits one day. Those days are over. We've got to learn to start communicating with people face to face again and being close knit with each other. There is, however, I seen this the other day. I just want to pass this along because I get this pickle all the time off grid working. They have these emergency phone chargers now. They're just like little battery packs you plug in. And some emergency on the fly. And they make it for Android and Apple. That may actually help save somebody's life one day. But the last thing that I want to pass around, just the random oddities before we get in the shelter. It turns out that fish take the exact same antibiotics as us. Who knew? So if you have fish that may one day need antibiotics, you can purchase them online. They've got amoxicillin, ceflexin. I'm not a physician, I apologize. But there's a lot of different things out there. Here's one, like I said, if you have tropical fish at home, they can take the same milligrams. So when we look at shelter in light of the trumpets, a lot of people have taken different venues. I visited a lot of believers. They went from cargo containers. Some people's got earthen homes. Some people's like me and build a tiny house on wheels. The thing about it is you've got to take in consideration, like this first house, this is just some thought processes to go through. Is, for example, Jamaican Cottage Shop makes tiny homes like this. Okay, similar to this. It's got metal roofs, and if you're going to put it somewhere like that, obviously you don't want a fire break around it. You know, one thing that I did put up here is the cargo container home. It won't burn. I mean, they drop them off in the ocean all the time. They float along, they go back and pick it back up. I mean, they're durable things. You can get them really cheap and make a beautiful home out of them. A yurt can be assembled in no time flat. I mean, you can literally have a home up in a day. And this is something that can be stored away until the time comes. A tiny house can be built in about a week's time frame with enough labor hands. And this right here, you can spend anywhere from $15,000 all the way up to $80,000. You can have marble countertops and the whole works, or you can have some, just a regular cabin style home. It just varies on what people want. But the thing about this is one day is if you ever have to grab and go in a minute, you still have a home to take with you, and it feels like a home. A lot of people have done the earthen structures. The only thing you have to worry about with this is mold and build time. There's contractors out there that do this. We've never taken on this type of project at off-grid contracting, but the thing about an earthen home is you don't really have to worry about an earthquake. You don't really have to worry about it burning down. I mean, there's just so many things that are wiped off the slate immediate with an earthen home. These type tents right here, I've stayed in one of these in Alaska working off-grid, and they're not fun. I don't encourage this. All right, but we all run on a budget. So if you have to get one of these Bass Pro and Cabela's, we'll appreciate your business, but I don't encourage this. But they can go up in no time flat, and they are thick walled. They are thick walled. I mean, if you had to set this up in the wilderness in a pickle, you could really make something out of it. But like I said, it ain't that great. In Alaska, they'll do them on platforms and on like a 2x6 platform layout, and it helps a lot. Lastly, a lot of people have considered the RV option for shelter. You can throw all your preps in it, your bug out bag, and be on the go if you needed to in a minute, and store it away at a storage facility to keep it out of sight and out of mind. I mean, one of the things is a lot of the people we go out and work for, you never know they're preparing for the end days. They'll talk about it, they'll read scripture with you, they'll pray with you, but they don't talk about what's going on. It's like Batman in the Batcave. Okay, and there's a reason for that, because we're all going to get persecuted one day. You know, anybody that's serving Messiah and the Most High, they're going to get persecuted for trying to get ready for what's coming. This is not the end-all, be-all. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, if you have a nice cabin out in the woods now, or if you have a decent structure out on your property now, that something's going to happen to it. I'm just saying that these are fallbacks, because between, you know, tsunamis, between a third of the stars falling out of the heaven, burning things up. I mean, a third of the green grass of the world is going to be burned up. That means you have a 1 in 3 chance of losing your home. I mean, that's a lot to take in. So, I mean, this is backups for shelter, because, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that a person needs. This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but sanitation. There is a lot of solutions out there nowadays for sanitation. I can tell you from tiny house living, pass this around, this is one of the easiest tools to wash clothing. You can even hook it to a bicycle, screw it down and pedal. And I'll be glad to pass this around in just a second, but I mean, you just turn the handle, and it's under pressure, hot water. I mean, it's like the mobile laundromat. And yeah, it's really easy to use. I've had that one for years. But there is a lot of solutions for composting waste and things like that. The tiny house people have really figured this out, because, I mean, you're limited in space and you can't really have a large regular bathroom. The water, you know, taking a hot shower, a lot of people think that that's something you have to give up later down the road, but you can actually take that right there, and with an adapter for propane and a small 12-volt battery and 1 solar panel, and you can have a hot shower all the time. So just a little bit of thinking outside the box, you can still have some of the modern conveniences. And that right there, I think it's $70, okay? And to show you an example of how small a solar panel you can have, the smallest one could be about twice the size of this, would be all you need to power it. So that's about $30. Plus 70, plus some propane, you've got hot water for quite some time. And we'll get into solar here in just a minute. But the company, you can get that like from Bass Pro, Cabela's, companies like that have that. There's a lot of commercial companies, like for example, I've seen this at Straightway. They just build block buildings. They built the full infrastructure in for sanitation, stuff like that. But if you just need something quick, they have it where you can just have it delivered nowadays on the go. Or like I said, if you're going to build you a tiny house or structure, things like that, where that you're limited on power and water flow and etc., they have plenty of sanitation solutions out nowadays, especially within those links that I sent to you. So the next thing we're going to get into in a minute that I actually can tell you a lot about is off-grid power. So when the trumpets start, and, you know, the situation being that the third of the sun, and we're going to see that the luminaries are darkened, this right here may not come into play anymore, okay? There is, in Germany, they have, and you'll see in the other presentation in just a second, they have thin film panels. They don't produce as much power as a large regular solar panel like this right here, but they do produce power across the whole panel. So like even low light, it can pull it in. I've even seen it off moonlight. The solar panel's trying to make power. So there is certain solar panels that might work well for the trumpets, and that's something to consider. This is a wood gasifier. There's a free video on my channel on 7 Trumpets Prepper. Built this for a couple $100, not this exact one, but you can build a setup for a couple $100. You just throw wood chips in it, light you a fire, the gas flows out through a filter box, then it goes out in your generator, fire your generator up, and you're off to business. This was technology that was used during World War II, and it's still usable today. So just FYI, you can build this for a couple $100. This can get dangerous though, and it is very dirty. Okay, so this is not just for everybody, but it can be done. Over here we have thermoelectric power. That's a BioLite stove right there. You can charge small devices. They have a lot of different units. They have some that'll charge battery banks. So if you're running your wood stove, it'll charge your battery packs up while you're doing it. So that's an option. This is some things that if the trumpets affect the other power sources, you've got options. Wind power is always supplemental. I've never told anyone to put wind power up for your primary source. If you want to have wind power as a backup, fine, but that's all it is a backup. All right. The mother of them all right here is if you have land that has water available on it, hydroelectric power runs 24 hours a day, never complains, and always keeps your battery bank full. Okay, so as long as you keep the grates clean where the water can go down in there and produce power, you're going to be fine. This is the one thing right here, like on my land in Claiborne County in Tennessee, is that I don't have the ability to make a lot of power, but you got to think, what would you rather have? 300-400 watts an hour, 24 hours a day, or maybe make some solar, a couple thousand watts for a couple hours. So, you know, it's like one of those deals where if part of something is better than all or nothing. So, move to the next presentation right here. So, been doing off-grid construction for people since 2014 officially. And if you ever want to reach out to us, we do pretty much everything from storm shelters, safe rooms, tiny houses, solar panels, wind turbines, greenhouses, aquaponics, hydroponics, you name it. I mean, pretty much we run the gamut of it. You can reach us at offgridcontracting.com. So what we're going to go over real quick, and this is just a brief breakdown. Feel free to film this if you want to. I'll answer any questions at the end. We're going to go over a lot of solar, and I'm just going to touch on wind power in a minute. But I've got components to pass around so you can see what you're working with. So the first thing you're going to do is size up your solar system. Now the way you do that is you got a well pump. Okay, that well pump probably ranges from, we're just going to say 3,000 watts. All right, that well pump's only going to be on for 15 minutes, so it's not something you have to worry about running constant. Your refrigerator, most refrigerators, especially the Energy Star rated ones, say they're 500 watts. That refrigerator is going to kick on, say, 2/3 of the time. So what you do is you start writing down a list of all the things that matter to you and when you're going to need them down the road. Okay, somebody may be diabetic and need insulin. Okay, you've stored up insulin over time. You're going to need that refrigerator, so you're not going to want to come up short on being able to keep that running. Okay, so what you do is you write down all the loads that you have, how many watts, how many hours you're going to run it. When you do that, that starts helping you size how much battery bank am I going to need, how much power am I going to need to produce. So for example, if a battery holds 8,000 watts and you have a solar array that makes 8,000 watts, you've balanced out your power production in the day. But you need to make sure you have enough storage for those loads. And I can break all this down later. You'll see as it starts to go through. Everybody has needs. I always tell people to don't go for your wants in life. The Most High gives us often what we need. And that's what we need to focus on, the needs first. And then we can go to the luxury items like a hot water heater and all the other things. The last thing is we all have a budget in life. So we just got to keep it to the budget for what you're going to install. So basic electricity is really simple, all right? You've got your voltage times your current equals your power. Now I know that this might start looking like math class, okay? Well, let me just break that down for you, all right? We're going to say that we have, you know on the back of your refrigerator, let's do this. Everybody has a refrigerator, right? That thing draws 5 amps, okay? It is 120 volts. You stick your finger in the light socket, it gives you a zap, you know you're getting your 120 volts. Don't do that. All right. But that's the voltage coming into our houses, okay? In America, we have split phase power. We have 2 legs coming in. That's 120 volt, 120 volt equals 240. So that's why they like your dryer. The tumbling unit and the heat unit, it's running off 2 different legs of power. Your refrigerator is just a single phase thing. So when you plug it in the wall, it's 120 volts of power. So you take 120 times 5. So that thing's drawing about 500-600 watts. That's how you start figuring up the wattage, the power that you're using. You just take the amperage and the voltage coming in your house. So if you know, like, you're plugging things in regular outlets, the one number is 120. The item that you're using, well, say it's the microwave, right? Microwave is 10 amps. So 10 times 120, it's 1,200 watts. That's how you start figuring up the things that you're using, okay? Because this is what you're going to design your power around. And it's just like, I try to explain electricity just like water flow, okay? The reason that you see, like, you'll see people hook up speakers and stuff and they'll blow their amp or stuff like that, right? You can only force so much power through so much conductive wire, okay? So everything always has to be sized appropriate. That's why that I encourage people when they're starting to design this stuff, there is a DC wiring calculator link, and I can send it to you if you shoot me an email at 7trumpetsprepper@gmail, or hit me up at gooffgrid@offgridcontracting.com. There's a free calculating tool, so anybody out here that wants to do your own power, you can do this stuff if you apply and do your due diligence to it. You just put in the numbers of the things you're using, and it tells you exactly what size wire to go down to Lowe's and buy. Okay, so you don't have to play a guessing game. Okay, you can go on eBay, buy the parts, ship it right to your doorstep, bolt it up yourself. Okay, so this is what I was explaining earlier about solar panels. That right there, that type of solar panel had, like I said, has tried to produce power in moonlight before. So like in low sunlight, it can produce that kind of power. In Germany, they really harnessed this to create power over there. Okay, and the German people, they're really, really top notch on tech stuff. They really try to stay on top of it. This right here is, you'll see this in Alaska, you see this in low light places, stuff like that. This is something for most of us in the lower 48, I don't go for it. What we always put up on people's houses, if you're looking for solar panels, is polycrystalline. That's multiple layers of silicone to draw the light in. The way a solar panel works, this is a tiny, tiny little example, okay? This powers nothing. Okay? So on the back though, if you pull this little plate back, you'll see there's two little strip pieces. That's a positive and a negative, okay? Solar panel is just like a battery. It just has power coming out of it, two leads. All right, so it's just like the battery in your car. If you hook these up in series and run them through a charge controller, you can do that. You can hook multiple panels together, but that is something that you have to look on the specs on your charge controller. But if you do something really simple, they make little Y branch connectors. They're just two little points coming out. And you can clip multiple of these together in parallel. All right, that gives you more power, every one you add. All right, this little panel is rated for 10 watts. Like I said, it'll power nothing. So you looking at this right here, though, you have these silicone grids in it, and the strips, okay? That takes the light energy and turns it into workable energy. All right, I'm going to pass that around. That's the first thing you'll need if you're going to start with solar power, is you're going to want to pick out your solar panels. This right here, I don't have an example with me. Thin film panels are made very special. They're sandwiched between two pieces of tempered glass. If you bump it, you will break it, okay? If you just so much even just mistreat it at all, like a hailstorm comes, anything just about, they can be damaged if you don't get the right type of solar panel, okay, if it ain't manufactured with a pretty good warranty. But I really believe that if I had it to do over again, I own 1 kW worth of these on the property that I don't have anymore due to a divorce. But this, when I had a lot of power at one time, this was the type of solar panel I had, okay? If I was buying anything today and you said, look, give me, what would you like to have? That would be what I would want to have, okay? But they're very expensive and they only produce X amount of power, okay? The power that this panel right here makes on that polycrystalline panel would be equivalent to that much right there, 1/3 of it. So you see how much space you need to make the equivalent to that type of power? So there's a trade-off. If you got the space and the land and the roof, go right ahead. All right, so this was what I was explaining a minute ago, is if you want to connect solar panels, it's just like connecting another water hose to another water hose. You just go from one to the next to the next. You can't get this stuff wrong. The clips only go one way, all right? You will not fail at installing this if you do this first. All right? So what will happen though is, now let's say that you do this right here. This panel was rated, you're doing a 12-volt battery bank, okay? This is very simple stuff, okay? You're going to do it for your well pump and run some lights and that's it. If you add another solar panel, this makes this 24 volts, all right? And then 36 and 48. But what happens is this charge controller will step that down. But the reason that people put solar panels in series instead of parallel is for two reasons. It doesn't put a lot of amperage through your wires, and it lets the biggest problem you have with power loss doing solar is the distance from A to B. Okay, so higher voltage carries the current a longer way. Okay, it's just like your utility company. When you see that sign that says the little arrow coming down and it says shock warning and it's a 480 volt transformer unit, you need to step away. Okay, because there's a reason they do that. It's because it's going to carry the current to the goalpost for you. This is the only tool if you're going to be a do-it-yourselfer. Okay, I'm telling you this is a professional. This is the only tool you need to buy. Okay, this is about 30 bucks on eBay. It is a MC4 crimping tool. All right, that's the only thing you need outside of normal tools. You can go to Lowe's and get anything else you need, wire strippers, the works, wrenches, whatever, but that is a specialty tool that is not just sold over the counter. This is how to connect if you're going to make your own extension. If you put your solar panels up, you don't want to buy your extensions, things like that off eBay. You can make your own extensions. Okay, when you strip your wire. The little connector goes in the big barrel. This little one right here goes in the, or I'm sorry, the bigger one goes in the smaller one. So just always remember that little, big, big, little. Okay? And you can take pictures of this, okay, and it'll be up on YouTube too, where you can go back and look over this. This is one of the most expensive things you will get into if you're going to do this. I discourage this if you're trying to allocate funds to other things in your budget, to prepping for hard times, because they sell Z-clip brackets online for about 12 bucks, and you can just screw it right down to whatever you want to bolt it down to. Okay, this stuff here is thousands of dollars. Okay, I mean these pads, the rails, the connectors, the lags that go on the roof, all this stuff's very expensive, but they make it just looks like a little Z, and you just put a bolt on the back of your solar panel, screw it right down to wherever you want to mount it. So there's a lot of different mounts. This is an example of one we done for a customer. The thing about doing these ground mount stuff like this is if you're going to go into the off-grid mindset, you've got to think about maintenance in your equipment, maintaining what you have. This you can go out with like an RV pole with a microfiber cloth, clean it in the summer. In the wintertime, you can go out with a squeegee. In 10 minutes, you're back in the warm. That's one thing about keeping solar panels on the ground. One thing we've swapped to doing, and a lot of people do this, if you go to Lowe's, they sell those blocks that you build a deck with. You know, you'll set your 4x4s on to build your deck. They're like $5. They look like a little pyramid. If you get those in 2 cap lock, you can just lay your solar panels out on the ground, and that holds them down. We've done that in Florida on cargo container homes. And it's come hurricanes through there 2 or 3 times now, and it's not took them off the roofs. They're only like 50 miles inland. So, I mean, that is a very cost-effective way of mounting your equipment down instead of having to spend a lot of money on this. Here's another example of it. You can put it on tile roofs, and you can mount solar nowadays anywhere you want to, just about. They make, I mean, even for those that are possibly thinking about tiny houses or the RV option, if you're going to get you a secondary source of shelter, this is an option as well nowadays. And this is similar to what I was talking about, that Z-clip bracket, but they're a little bit shorter down than that. Some companies even make them where you can fold them out on the go. Okay, take it wherever you want to go with it. And the thing about this is that right there can power, that's enough power to a CPAP machine, you know, small electrical devices, a lot of the things, walkie-talkies, things like that, that's really critical. You can get away with a small amount of solar panels that you can clip right up to a charging station. So when you start, we started out with solar panels, the next thing you're going to need is a charge controller. This is an example of a charge controller. There's different types. Take it out, plastic if you want to. The reason that you have to have this is because when you have batteries, the high voltage has to be turned into workable power for your battery bank, okay? It's really simple to wire this up. It's marked on a lot of these units nowadays what leads go where. So you take your positive in from your solar panel and your negative in. Then you go after your positive and your negative on your battery bank. You have officially done 2/3 of the install work on your off-grid system right now by doing that. Okay, that's 2/3 of the work. All right. Now, a lot of people do stuff just like that. They'll just run it straight in, run it right down, and that's it. They make breakers for a reason. Okay, so too much power is pulled, it'll trip. There is a specialty breaker for solar power, DC power. I encourage you to always put a breaker in line, okay? And there's diagrams for this, but a breaker always needs to go in line between your solar panels, always needs to go in line between your battery bank, and always needs to go in line between your inverter, okay? And that way that you have protected each component from anything arcing, faulting out, etc., just like you do in your house, okay? So, a lot of people ask the question, well, what kind of charge controller do I need to get? Things vary on the cost, and so that always determines what you want to buy. Multi-power point tracking is something that you'll get the most power out of your solar coming in by purchasing that, but it's hundreds of dollars difference, okay? A pulse width modulating controller, you can get that 60, 70 bucks and up, okay? So there's a difference in the cost, but this doesn't create as much power from your solar as this does. And some things have a hybrid unit where you can hook in a wind turbine along with your solar if you're going to do wind power. So what you're seeing passing around right now, just for clarification, these two pins, you put your solar under. These two pins go under your battery, okay? This right here is if you want to run this to like a toggle switch. If anybody's got an RV, you know the little DC toggle switches in there for your lights and stuff. You can run right off your battery bank to lights and stuff like that off something like this. These are relatively inexpensive, all right? But this is a pulse width, so it's just sending pulses in your battery bank where the solar MPPT is going, it's quickly filling it back up, okay? So this is the high-end charging equipment. This is like what we put in the field for a lot of our people right here. But this is $400 or $500 difference to what I just said on the other thing. So you always get what you pay for in life. This is a hybrid unit. Okay, you see you can put your wind power coming in, you can put your solar coming in, and that all goes back to the battery bank just like so. Something I want to talk about real quick is if you go to the battery store, do y'all have Harbor Freight up here?
Yes.
Okay, all right. This is a battery like you see at Harbor Freight. Okay, now I'm not going to pass this around, all right? You drop that on your toe, you'll be feeling it tomorrow. That's like $70, okay? And it's 35 ampere, all right? So the way that you figure that up is you take 35 amps times 12 volts, and that tells you how many watts you got, all right? So it's about 500 watts per battery you put back. If you don't have a lot of money on a budget right now, you can buy batteries like that and start building a bank, paralleling the positive to the positive, negative to the negative. And I can get you prints on this, no charge to help you out with this. But that is an option that a lot of people can go with. Outback makes batteries that they're pure lead carbon. They're $650 a battery. I mean, so, you know, I mean, you can start small or you can go big out the gate. There's a lot of options out there in life. But lithium is a fire hazard, okay? Anybody that sees Tesla and stuff like that, they won't allow this even in tiny house applications, stuff like that right now. It takes a very special setup and a special charge. I don't encourage anybody that's going off grid to do lithium. I don't even do it in business for people. I won't even work for you if you want it. I mean, that's how far we stay away from it. Flooded batteries, if you're a type of person that you're okay with maintaining stuff, anybody that's been to the golf course, if you flip the seat up, there's Trojan batteries in there. You got the little caps. You have to water that from time to time, put electrolyte in it, okay? If you don't want to do that, you're going to be away from your property a lot. You're going to be out living life and then waiting for the day when you need to go to it. Absorb glass mat, AGM batteries, that's what to have. And that's what we put in for a lot of people. So this is an example of a battery you would have to maintenance with little caps. Okay, these are Trojan type batteries. This is type battery that you won't have to maintenance, like the one at Harbor Freight, you don't have to maintenance that. So this is just one last thing off the checklist you don't have to worry about. This is a lithium type battery. Like I said, these things have caught on fire before, okay? So I mean, this is the newest technology, but it's, you know, it's difference between running your cell phone and running your house. All right, I mean, this is not something to be toyed with, okay? So the next thing that I'm going to explain is inverters, because a lot of people ask questions about inverters. This is a little bit heavy, but I want you to definitely see like what will be on the wall in your house. There's two types of inverters out there, and it's very important that you select the inverter for your house wisely. If you're running sensitive medical equipment, electronics, things of that nature, you want a pure sine wave inverter, because that waveform is normal, just like the standard electrical company. If you don't need that, and you're only needing like DC or electrical motors, things like that ran, lights ran, stuff like that, a refrigerator ran, you can get away with using a modified inverter, okay? Because that waveform is in chocks. It's not fully normal like the electric utility company gives to you. These type inverters right here are pure sine wave, for example. And you can also use power off the utility company to help supply power to your loads in case that you didn't have enough solar. So you can start small and build with it, okay? Or you can back this up with a generator. There's a lot of options out there, but the thing to consider is, like I said, sensitive electrical things like you have a family member that requires medical equipment, you do not ever want to put that on a modified sine wave inverter, okay? They make different types. You could have, if you don't want to get really high-tech, 12-volt battery bank, they have inverters that run off 12 volt, okay? They have inverters that run off 48 volts. So, I mean, depending on the type and style and demands, there's an option out there for just about everything. I know this looks highly technical, but I'm just going to break this down real quick. We have our solar panel. That breaker that's being passed around protects that coming into this charge controller from damaging it. That little charge controller passing around is the same, goes in the same place as this unit right here. There is a breaker in between that and your batteries. That's 2/3 of your install, okay? So if you've got that done, you're 2/3 of the way to the finish line. And a licensed electrician, or if you have a basic electrical skill set, the white is your neutral, the black is your line wire, and the green is your ground, okay? And if you're gonna run 240 volt power in your house, it's always the red, okay? If you can wire that, if you have a basic electrical skill set or you have an electrician, this is always marked inside the inverter. Well, the really good inverters, it's marked. So you don't have to guess about anything, you can do it yourself, okay? I mean, it is clearly marked what goes where. All right, and after you have that installed, you would literally hook up your remote control, turn the power on, you're off to the races. And you've got power off grid. And at that point, over time, you can just add your battery bank and add solar panels extra with time. But this is the point where that if you're going to do a large setup, that's where I always encourage people to get professional help, because I mean, there's a lot of work goes into this if you're going to do something that's going to take you completely off grid and power a lot of things like a normal home. This next example right here, a lot of people, does anybody have a home with an emergency transfer switch on it for a generator? Okay. A lot of people want a transfer switch on their home. If you have an electrical panel in your house nowadays, if you'll check with your electrician, they make these breakers nowadays that go in right below your main breaker. You push the slide over and up. It turns off your utility company and turns in the back feed off the breaker. So if your utility company ever went out, the end of days commences tomorrow, and slide that up and lock it out. It saves you thousands of dollars from getting a transfer switch box. Okay, that part's only like $100. That opens that up, and you could have an inverter back feeding power in your house to power your home. So just something to keep in mind. There's options out there to save you thousands of dollars, and it's really simple to hook in place, because a lot of people have a generator going into their house, but instead of that, you could have solar power feeding into your home. This is what I was talking about. If you get a solar inverter to hook up, it's marked inside there. So you don't have to play a guessing game on anything. It's clearly marked on a lot of this equipment nowadays for the end user if you're not wanting to get an electrician out to do this. Something I want to tell you real quick before I wrap this up, and I'll take any questions that you have, is that wind power is never to be relied on as a sole source of power. It will let you down. It will be a bright, sunny day, and you will really need power, and it'll just be sitting there. It'll be a storm that'll come through and knock out everybody's power, and your wind turbine's about to come off the pole, and your battery bank was already full from the sunny day before. So, I mean, it's one of those things that unless it's in the wintertime and it's supplemental power, you know, you don't need it. But I will tell you this, if most investments in wind power, you can count $3,000. The money that you would spend on that, you could almost put you a small solar system in. So that's why I always encourage people to add more batteries and add more solar panels. Anybody got any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Like if you just went real basic with a tiny house, what would be just the average cost for that?
Okay, so there is some cards right here at the front. Anybody that's interested in tiny home, my friend Randy builds tiny homes, been building them for years. A small tiny home can start out like 15 grand, and then you can go all the way up from there. I built my own tiny house for 17. So you can do it, but you've got to put, you know, you've got to put the elbow into it. You know, you've got to swing the hammer. If you have a professional builder build your home, tiny homes can get very expensive. And there's a lot of people that they don't do fairly with people out there. I'll just be completely honest with you. Jamaican Cottage Shop is a really nice builder because they'll build like the shell of the home, deliver it to you, and you finish it out. Or they sell it to kids. And so there's a lot of people out there that they're fair in their business for how far you want to put into the finished work, they'll meet you in the middle. But now the tiny houses, like I said, if you build it yourself, you can usually get it in around 10, 15. But Randy's to the point where Randy sold 30 tiny homes for $15,000 a day in 7 days. So, I mean, it's a big market for that right now. And the thing about a tiny home, and especially in regards to the trumpets, because this was my mindset, is if you have something like that stored in a metal structure, protect it. And things commence. Okay, it's done survive an earthquake, it's done survive, fire, everything else. At that point, you hook to it and you go to where you need to, that you know is safe. Government is getting to the point where they're making it very hard, especially local governments. You need to be careful to research first before that you build your house, how you need to tag your home. You might need to tag it as a custom trailer. You may be able to not have to get it tagged at all. You may have to tag it as a tiny home, okay? You may have to get a license plate for it. My house exists, but it doesn't. You know, it's non-existent on paperwork. But the thing is, if you can get, it's twofold, unrestricted land and a tiny house that's not registered, you're golden. You know, I mean, the only other thing you could do is just die and not die, you know, because then Uncle Sam's not looking for it. I'm really praying for that one to happen. I'd love to read my own obituary from like Fiji or something, you know. But the tiny house thing in a nutshell, that's pretty much the cost of it.
So, if the person was starting to prep and they were like on a budget, like a single mother, like what would you? I don't need that. How would you direct them as far as priority? What do you get first? What do you get second, or whatever?
That's a good question. So the way that I looked at it when I first started is that I was just walking out of Babylon and I felt like it was going to happen tomorrow because I read scripture and shudders went down my spine. The first thing I thought was water, you know, is just start putting back water because that's one of the most cost-effective things. Even if you have a water purification system in the house and you can just get storage for it and like the storage containers, just start putting it back. But a lot of people that's operating on a budget, the big thing is when you go to the store, you buy 3 and you keep 1 back, you know, or you buy 4 or something, you keep 1 back, and that's the way we started doing with the canned food and things like that. And like I said, we turned around after a while before it went bad, give it to the local food pantry or something to help the homeless, but like, you got to just skim the teal is pretty much what I tell a lot of people, because when you start doing that with the food and water and medical supplies up front, then later down the road, if you get some substantial funds, your money's always going to be eat up in shelter and power. Because unfortunately, we live in the century we live in. I mean, power is a huge thing nowadays, and it costs a fortune. They don't want you to, look, they don't want you to be free, okay? They don't want any of us to be free. We live in the land of the free. They say we're free, but there is nothing free about anything. I mean, I paid $150 in tolls, I think, just to get up here. I had to pay to go on the King's Highway, so I'm just telling you, like, there's nothing free anymore, but, like, that's my advice would be to just a little alone the food and water first, and then anything beyond that. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so shipping containers, and I'm saying this from experience in helping build the houses in them and then doing solar on the houses. Some shipping containers have a coating on them, okay, and in them. You've got to be careful if you can get the bill of lading to know what's been shipped in those things, because some of them are one-time use from China, so you got to make sure what was in them, and you don't want anything hazardous, stuff like that. If you can get one that just had regular goods and services shipped in it, and it ain't beat completely to death, you can get them pretty much about $3,000 is the running cost on them. They make wonderful homes. I have seen exquisite homes made out of them. You can cut the sides out, join other ones to it, and get you links to people that's done tiny homes and homes in them. They make great tiny homes. I mean, you're driving an armored tank pretty much at that point, as far as turning them into a tiny house on wheels. And the cost on them is about $20,000 when you're done with a tiny home if you're doing it in the container, a 20-footer. Yes, ma'am. So it's white seed harvest, and I personally met the gentleman I don't know how many times at prepping events and stuff like that. He has a really good heart. They're a good family-owned company. It's not garbage. It's non-GMO, and I think they're open pollinated is how that they do them, and just really genuine good people. That's the thing is, the time's coming, and I don't know how, I've tried this with family and friends, I don't know how to reach people, is because I've got issues in my own life I got to work through. You know, we all got sin issues in our own life, but like when it comes to reasoning with people about, you know, bad things are going to happen, whether you look at it scriptural or whether you look at it just physically, we could walk out of here right now and come a blizzard. I don't know, I can't tell you how to reach people. All I can tell you is that to put it back, and one day they'll appreciate it when you pull a Joseph on them and they come knocking on the door. Because people just, I don't know if there's a glaze on the eyes right now, but that's just why I feel like when the trumpets kick off, a lot of people is going to be like, man, Bob told me and he was right. You know, we missed that rapture. So, I mean, that's all I know to tell you when it comes to that, because I've tried to reach family, friends. It's just like they don't want to hear it. He looks at this stuff from the perspective of the, you know, overreaching government, bad things happening down the road, et cetera, et cetera. He's a prepper himself. And one of the things, the most crucial thing is to get unrestricted land. If you get land that has any restrictions on it, it's pretty much game over sometimes as far as going off grid. There's a lot of places that if you're very careful, the only place they try to ping you on is sanitation. Like if you go to get a septic tank, you have to have a septic permit. But outside of that, if you do the tiny house thing with compost and toilet, stuff like that, there's a lot of options you can do to circumvent that, so that land can actually still be showing undeveloped, non-existent. You know, like there's nothing existing on it. Well, until Google Maps flies over. But you know, I mean, like you're insulated pretty much on paperwork for looking at it. Unrestricted land is the ultimate thing to look for, and if you use Joel Scalz's book in relation with Scripture and in relation with unrestricted land, that can help you really sort down a lot of options that way. Okay, states with the most unrestricted land, other than partial to home, but Tennessee. Okay, East Tennessee is huge on that. You can find some land in western North Carolina, northern Georgia, Kentucky. You know, as you get up north, things change a lot. I mean, the southeast and Midwest, there's a lot of opportunity there. I mean, you know, California, Miami, place like that, obviously. I mean, these, you know, I mean, there's no fly zones in life, but I mean, like in the Midwest and then like in the eastern, southeast, there's a lot of opportunity. And land, some land only goes for like $3,000 an acre. So, I mean, you can get it really, really cheap. And I'm talking with natural springs on it, caves, I mean, a lot of things that you would want, it's in abundance. Yeah, that's a good question, because here in the past year, that's something I've been looking at. It's the second Exodus in relation to 7 Trumpets of Revelation. When I was down visiting Brother William in Atlanta and talked about that in the presentation, there's going to come a time that I feel like, just like at the farm, that like all those years I put in from 2009 forward is just to waste, you know. And I mean, it can happen in a minute. You could lose your home tomorrow, everything you prepped, you know. I think I lost a lot of the stuff I had in a divorce. I ain't saying that from the way I feel bad. I mean, just stuff happens. I mean, you just don't know. You could go to jail tomorrow. I mean, but, you know, when the time comes, I mean, I just feel like I travel this country all the time. I'm going to down to Richmond tomorrow, and that backpack is my home anymore. That's literally, I just look at that all the time like that's all you got. So that's it, look, your being and your backpack, because one day it might be all you have. And, because I'm telling you, if somebody said tomorrow, leave this land, I'm gone, you know.
So that's basically when you would need like the life straws and things like that that's going to help you eat out, like in the elements that you have to plan for. Those little things that you can carry with you.
Right, because like that Sawyer water filter, I wish they made a water filter that was like biological, radioactive, stuff like that was good for 100,000 gallons. That'd do somebody a lifetime, you know. Unfortunately, it's just not available right now. But you know, to have on my pretty much what I take with me when I go places is a tent. I've got a fold-out tent. I've got food and water. I've got medicine, fire starting. I've got a bunch of fire starting stuff in there. That the only bad thing about fire starting equipment is when you fly, TSA will take all that, so you got to make sure to leave it in the vehicle. So you're limited on that if you're flying somewhere. And I take a weapon with me or something like that. Of course, in states that don't allow concealed carry, you're disarmed as well. So, I mean, I try to keep the bare necessities that would, like, thinking 3 days, what would I need for 3 days? That's kind of what I try to keep with me when I travel somewhere. Because, you know, one day that may be all you've got to flow you. So, a bug-out bag, in short, is pretty much a 72-hour rundown for you. So, that'd be like, if I got broke down, like I had a blowout recently on the side of the highway and had not had a spare, so I had to walk back, and it was out in the middle. Well, I'll give you an example in Alaska. If you want to die, go work off grid in Alaska. All right, I'm telling you, you get from bears to falling in a creek, freezing to death. I can't tell you how many times I almost died out there. The first night I almost froze to death and got one of those little survival blankets. You know, they're $1 at Walmart. Yep. If you don't have one, yep, that needs to be the first thing you buy when you leave here tonight. I suited up in that thing, and I finally got warm, and I am telling you what, like, there are certain places you just don't want to be without. You know, in your vehicle, you need to have a blanket, a coat, you know, the bare necessities in life. Those things always need to be with you, because that's pretty much that 72-hour rundown, because like that survival blanket, things like that, you never know if you're going to get in a pickle. And pretty much most people build a bag to get them through 3 days to a week. Because a lot of people, especially me that travel and do contractor work, like I might get broke down Salt Lake City, Utah, and it all hit tomorrow. That's a long walk home. That's, I don't know, 2,000 miles home. I mean, that's a long walk. So that would be the first thing I would do, is if I was starting out right now, would be getting a bag, and especially the winter solutions for your vehicle, you know, road flares, a blanket, survival, the aluminum foil survival blanket, things like that, and a backpack to get me home. I walked the streets in New York the other day. I just want to give y'all mad props. Anybody lives up here. My heart was throbbing. I felt anxiety. I had social anxiety, and I love everybody, man. I walk up to you like, look, I'm running for governor, you know. But I'm like, I went through the toll booth. I got heart palpitations. I'm like, this is not my place, all right? The hills of East Tennessee are calling her, and I'm going to tell you, man, I tip my hat to y'all. This is the urban jungle. I mean, mad props. I will never say a disrespectful word about anybody else. I say that.
connection with the still, the device, the soundable still?
Oh, the survival still. Yeah.
Yes, the survival still. When you desalinate the water, you said it loses elements, it loses nutrition in the water. What can you do to add those nutrients to the water?
Well, like that gentleman was talking about the alkaline machine, like you can, that right there would be the solution to help that out right there. You know, but the thing about it is, you know, it's one of those deals, it's going to be a couple $1,000 investment, but if that was the situation you're getting into, you could turn around with that water and you know, add the alkaline to it. You know, the mineral situation, you know, that's one of those things where you want to keep vitamins and minerals around to supplement that before you have that distilled water. I'm going to turn it back over to Ron. I just want to say thank you for the invite to come speak. Yes, ma'am. You can't have what now for more than 6 months?
Not live in a mobile home, like anything with wheels on it longer than 6 months?
So there is some law in certain places that you cannot live in a mobile structure like that, etc. This is the thing I'm saying is that you've got to be very careful. If you can get the unrestricted land, like a tiny house on wheels, you can put it up on law. And there's certain ways you can get around some of these restrictions so it actually becomes a home, but you can kick the block out and take off in like 5 minutes if you needed to. There's a lot of ways that she says, I'll be honest with you, if it ain't breaking toward and you need to do it to get by one day, do it. I ain't worried about manslaughter one day because they're probably going to put you in jail anyway, you know. But I am trying to work on keeping the tort, all right? But I just want to say before we get back on, thank you for the invite. I'm going to speak with us. Most High bless you.